What is going on, legends? Rhyme Magic here, and in this video I'm going to share with you 10 secrets that I used to overcome massive shyness and social anxiety. Now, before we get into this, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button so that you can check out other videos that I have, and also keep yourself accountable to this journey of personal development. I'll keep you growing. Now let's get into this. Before we get into the actual secrets, I want to just pre-frame that I grew up in a drug abusive household that had me essentially just be really, really anxious from as long as I can remember. When I went to primary school when I was 5 years old, I was so terrified of other people that I would literally have to be clawed off my mum's arms by the principal of the school every day because I was screaming and I was so scared of being around other kids. I was so anxious. And then I kind of built up a little bit of confidence because I was good at a lot of things because I didn't spend much time socializing. I just did math sums and at recess and lunchtime and played sport all the time. And so I was really good at sport and academics. And then when I went to high school, I was terrified. And then my mum left my dad, and that just crumbled my confidence. And I went back into crippling social anxiety. I went into some big low depressions as well. And even all the way up till the end of high school, about 18 years old, was when I really started to work on this shyness and social anxiety. And so I've really struggled with it. And I'm telling you, these things changed the game for me. So I'm excited to get to share them with you. The first one is, the first secret to crushing shyness and social anxiety is to practice socializing. So when I was 18, I used to go clubbing by myself. I don't drink alcohol, and I didn't drink alcohol then. And I used to literally go out by myself and practice talking to people at nightclubs and stuff like this. And that's not exactly what I'm recommending that you do. I'm saying I want you to practice socializing around people who are aligned to your interests. Now, it's very easy in this day and age when you have Facebook groups, when you have meetup groups, to make this possible and to find places to practice. But the reason why is because most people suck at when they struggle with this. It's because the people around them don't see them, and so they always feel that nervousness. But what you're gonna realize is when there's people that have similar interests to you, they'll see you for who you are. They'll be more loving, compassionate, kind. They'll see you as a more valuable person. And this is very, very important. This is so important, this video in general, that Jordan Peterson literally, his single piece of advice that he gives to parents is that you should make sure your kid knows how to socialize by 4 years old, how to play well with other kids. Because then other people are gonna reflect to them that they're valuable. You determine your value by seeing the way that other people treat you. This is how we're learned. We're taught we're valuable based on how other people treat us. So if you struggle with anxiety and shyness like I did, the world was telling me I'm not valuable because people weren't responding super well. And then if you don't play well with other kids, then teachers and parental figures and other people, like your friends, parents and stuff, won't like you either because, and the world reflects to you that you're not a valuable person and that you're not a good person, which kind of sucks, right? And I know I experienced that to a certain degree. I'm sure you have as well. But we can reverse it with this, but it's gonna take doing things a little bit differently. Like me going to clubs to practice talking to people, talking to girls, talking to groups of people. I mean, it's pretty weird, right? But I did it and look at me now. I've got confidence now, right? I've really worked on that and I'm a great socializer because of these factors. So really take this seriously, guys. Practice with people that are aligned to you. When they see you, they reflect to you that you're valuable, and it starts to change your neurology and going, okay, cool. I'm actually valuable. I'm actually someone that's got, because I didn't have anyone else that wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had one friend, and then that friend kind of unfriended me, and I was like, I'm the only person that wants to become a successful entrepreneur at 18 years old. Then as I started to socialize and find groups, I searched people out. There was this dude I rang on like the equivalent of a Craigslist website in Australia called Gumtree, who was advertising for office space and saying, hey, I'm looking for an entrepreneur to pay to be in my office. And I called him and said, hey, do you want to go for coffee? Which at that point was a big step for me. I was like very nervous about it. And then I ended up becoming friends with him. And then he introduced me to someone else. And through that person, I met this whole network of entrepreneurs. And I was like, whoa. And now a lot of my friends came from another network that I met through that network. And that started to go, hang on. I created a club actually. This is go on a couple of years. I created a club of 20 entrepreneurs and I felt so confident. I was like, you know what? All these people know me. They like me. They see me and appreciate me for who I am and who I want to be. It was very different. So practice. You actually have to practice. And I'm going to give tips on how to go about that over the next over the next 4 points to point 5. Cool. So when you're going out there and practicing, the first thing you need to do is conversation rampage. It sounds intense. It sounds like Rambo or something like that. But what I essentially mean is if you go to like a networking event or you're attending an online Zoom speed friend dating thing or whatever it is that you're practicing socializing with, if as soon as you get there, you just start talking to a couple of people and you go, okay, the first 10 minutes here, oh, I'm so nervous, but I'm just gonna try to go out there. That sets the tone for the whole rest of the night. And that starts to rewire, your neural pathways to tell your brain, no, I actually can do this. I am a social person. And we're gonna get to that as we go on, but start intensely. Like go out there and just be like, oh, I'm just gonna go introduce myself to this group. And I used to do this at networking events. I'd go straight into a group, and remember, I had severe anxiety. I built up to this. But I go straight to a group of 5, 6 people and I'd be like, hey guys, what are you guys up to? I just didn't have anyone else to chat to. I thought I'd come up and say hi. And the whole group would turn and talk to me, and then I'd practice my elevator pitch. And it was terrifying. I did other things to work up to this point, but then the whole rest of the networking event, it was so easy. All the other conversations were easy because I kind of ripped the Band-Aid off at the start. It's a very important point. And the more practice that you do, again, your brain's starting to say, I can socialize. I don't have it. Like, I can do this. And you start to become more and more confident. The third one, and this is a big one for me, kindness. Like when I would go up to a group of a bunch of people, I'd be really open, loving, kind. And this is why you have to do it with aligned people. If you just go, that's why I said clubbing was an example of how I used to do it. But you're not necessarily going to find a lot of aligned people. It's just random people there. If you go to a specific interest group and you're bringing your heart, it's going to be well received. You could be really kind to a group of people at a nightclub and they could be like, F off, idiot. I mean, it's the last thing you need to improve your anxiety and your shyness. But kindness, this is a big one. Gratitude for the fact that you get to socialize, that you get to improve on it, that you get to practice it. Sounds a little bit like, what? But if you're in your heart versus your head, it makes socializing so much easier. This next point's massive as well, but I really want to hit this. If I ever did like, after I'd worked on my anxiety and we go a few years into the future, I took a ridiculous leap of faith to get into speaking because it became my dream after I kind of proved to myself that I could socialize. I was like, you know what, I want to become a speaker, but it was just so far past my comfort zone. But before I'd go on and do like a seminar or something, I'd just say, I get to do this. And I'd remind myself, and that would put me in my heart. Instead of thinking, am I going to do well? What are other people going to think? What am I going to remember what I'm going to say? All head-based things. And it'd be like, oh, I've got to get this done. I can't wait till this is finished. That's all have to, like, I have to do this. I have to get this finished. And then worrying about all the things. I'd remind myself that I'm choosing to do this. Like if you're going and socializing, you're choosing to do it. You get to do it. It's a privilege. It's something to be grateful about. Holy crap, I get to go out there and socialize. And that's a very heart-centered thing to do. It's very hard to be super anxious when you're massively in your heart. It kind of just like, it's such an amazing antidote for anxiety getting into your heart. I'm so grateful that I get to connect with other people. I'm so grateful that I get the chance to practice this, and I'm in the Western world, not a third world country. These kind of things, like I get to do this and I don't have to do this. Heart versus head. And then with that, when you go and connect with people, you're bringing such a nice energy that people will be so much more reciprocal to you, that they are gonna be so grateful that you're chatting to them. It's just a really nice way to go about things. And it makes it way easier. As soon as you go, I'm gonna be loud, I'm gonna be strong, I'm gonna say the most amazing, tell amazing stories. All that's head-based stuff. When you go on and you're just like, I'm grateful I get to be here. I'm like, who are you? I want to, and it's gonna move us into our next point, curiosity. Ask questions, listen, and be present. This is just, not many people are like this. It's very rare that I'll meet someone that has curiosity. I think it is the most amazing quality that someone can have from a social aspect. Curiosity. I can literally now, because I've worked on all this stuff, socialize anywhere. Because my mind, I just set the frame of curiosity. I'm just generally curious. I want to find out what people do. You'll put me into, like, sometimes with different partners that I've been with, I'll go socialize and their friends might be different to my friends, or it might be one of their friends' birthdays and all their friends are completely different to me. And people have no idea about personal development or entrepreneurship, all the stuff that I'm into. And someone will be there and I'll just be like, why are you doing that job? Like, tell me about it. What do you get from it? How does that make you feel? And I've just got so many questions and I'm really curious. So I'm asking questions, I'm really listening, I'm being present, and people just don't know what to do because they're used to just being like, yeah, mate, fucking get me another beer, mate. They just don't know what, they're like, what? This person really sees me. It's actually, and I create such amazing relationships. I'm really good at building connections. I actually was at I went to the GQ Gentleman's Ball. I got a +1 to that, which is like the who's who, the people on the TV show, The Bachelor there, a bunch of celebrities. And I went and spoke to one of the keynote speakers, Mark Webber, not the race car driver, but he's a Hollywood actor, producer, director. And I went and chatted to him after. And I essentially brought this in. I was like, man, I loved your keynote. I love that you spoke about this and this. And we just got in this deep conversation. And I didn't know anyone other than my friend that I got the +1 with, but I was out there mingling. This is like a couple of years ago. That guy ended up coming on my podcast. You can check out the podcast episode with Mark Webber. Now he's in one of my close friendship circles. And this guy is dating a famous Australian actress. He's he's a really famous, successful person who's now a great friend of mine. Such a beautiful man. I connected with him. And the reason why is because I asked, I'm curious. I was really curious. And I was like, man, this has been the most refreshing conversation I've had this whole night. Thank you so much. And his famous actress partner, like wife's trying to get him, like, come on, we got to go. And he's just, not in that way, but just, come on, we got to go. And he's just like, oh, I just want to finish this conversation. Because I was genuinely curious. And when you're curious, it's so easy for people to interact with you. You get such great buy-in. It's such a beautiful experience for them. They feel seen because you're curious. You're showing an interest. Think about how often people do that to you or how often you do it to other people. It's very rare. I'm always bringing this in, and it's very rare that, like, if I don't show this, conversation just doesn't go anywhere. It's just boring stuff. And because not many people are curious. They're just worrying about their own thing. They're in their head. Bring curiosity. It makes the whole process of socializing so much easier. 5, understand social anchors. So what this is giving yourself permission to understand that when you start to improve your socializing skills and your confidence and you're less anxious and you have less shyness, you're still going to have anchors. Anchors are nervous system memories or imprints of that. You know, when you can sometimes go back to the house that you grew up in and go into your bedroom or hang around with your parents and you still feel like the little kid you were when you were young. It's like, that's an anchor. You get pulled back into, or you smell something like a meal. You're like, I haven't been to Subway for like 8 years, or a Macca's. Oh, and then you remember, it's almost like it's an anchor. That smell creates an anchor back to the past of when you were at McDonald's or whatever it was. Now, it's really important that you give yourself permission to understand that if you're hanging around an environment of people in which they see you in a certain light. They see you as the shy person. They see you as the anxious person. Your family treat you like that. Every time you go back in their company, you're gonna feel shy again. It can change over time. When I was 18 years old, I had so many negative associations to the city I grew up in because of who I was. I was so shy and anxious. And I went and lived in another state, in another city. I went from Melbourne to Perth, and it was a whole new, fresh area with no anchors to who I was. I could be whoever I wanted to be. And I went out socializing, and I became essentially an adult of my own independence and with no social anchors. And then I built confidence over like an 8-month period. And then when I went back to Melbourne, I was a different person, and those anchors didn't pull me back as strongly. So sometimes you need to give yourself you need to have some understanding that it might be beneficial for you to spend less time around the friends and family and people that make you feel small. Not because they're terrible people, it's just the association they have to you. So you got to understand that those anchors are there. I found it very, very hard I got into personal development a year and a half before I finished high school. But I literally, every time I saw someone, they're like, "What's going on, mate?" And they just looked at me the same way, they treated me the same way, I instantly felt small. And then I'd listen to these audios and I'd be like, wow, I could do whatever I want. I'd go back and it's like, oh yeah, you fuckhead. And then I'd just like straight back to feeling like an insignificant, small nobody essentially. And then when I went out and left high school, I was like, now with no anchors, I can go and create a new association, a new identity, which we'll get to in a bit, of my own, in my own right, okay? So understand that, give yourself permission to maybe create some space from certain people, practice this, build your confidence, and then come back as a new person, okay? Very important. 6, and by the way, if you guys are getting value from this, drop a like on this video. It helps the YouTube algorithm push the message out there, and it means the world to me. Really appreciate that. Get that going. I'm glad I remembered that. I often forget. All right, 6. It's about understanding that it's normal to have programming of being anxious. It's actually normal. And the reason why is because we are tribal beings. As human beings, we were created, just like if you watch the Animal Planet or the Discovery Channel and you're watching documentaries on different animals, they've got certain things like birds, certain birds live in pairs. You've got herd animals. We are tribal creatures as humans. We were back in the heyday of being cavemen and women and whatnot. We were living in tribes of like 30 to 50 people. And so our survival was based upon that tribe. And we were wired in our nervous system to tell us that if we are liked by other people in the tribe, we are safe because the tribe's going to keep us in there. We're not going to get ousted. But if we mess up socially, if we do something that shames the tribe or stuffs up, like let's say, for example, the tribal leader misinterprets that you were hitting on his partner or someone that he was interested in or something like that, you could get clubbed to death or you could get chucked out of the tribe, and then you're probably going to die in the wild by yourself. So our nervous system tells us when we're around social settings, you need to be liked. And that can put a lot of pressure on us. So it's normal to feel that anxiety to a certain degree. So give yourself a little bit of kindness around it. It's okay, it's normal, it's part of our biology, all right? 7, speak confidently. This is something that is super helpful when you are practicing as well. There's 2 aspects to that, loud and slow. Now, if you do this right off the bat, as soon as you're on your conversation rampage, it becomes the tone for the rest of the night. You speak loud, you speak slowly, and people just, all of a sudden your mind says, you've got time, it's okay. And you get reciprocated to as if you're a confident person, because if someone speaks loud and slow, it's assumed that they're confident. It's a symptom of being confident to speak loud and slow. So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Do you speak loud and slow to build confidence? Or are you already confident, and because you're confident, you speak loud and slow? Well, both. But because the confidence is something we're working on, we're gonna do it now. You're gonna practice being loud and slow with your voice, and then that's gonna build your confidence. And then building your confidence is gonna make it easy to be loud and slow when you talk. But it just calms your nervous system down. It allows you to breathe a little bit. And that helps to process that anxiety. I didn't put this on the list, but I just wanna say, breathing into your belly is another really great tip. You're in social settings and you're noticing yourself get a little bit shallow breathing, just calm it down. And then use these other tips as well. Let's keep going though. It's so cool to reflect on how I've used these, because I literally used all these. It's not just like, I wonder what I can research to put on my list. All of the stuff that I teach is things that have resonated with me, that I've done, that I use, that I really go, you know what, this is cool stuff. This worked for me. And this changed it for me. This really broke me through. Cool, so that's speaking confidently. All right, change your identity. This is a brain, just in case you're wondering. A little bit different looking at this. I think this one's better, but it's all good. We got a brain here, and this is symbolic of 2 neural pathways. And I want you to realize that an identity is when you label yourself in a category of something that becomes your identity. So a fireman is a fireman. What do you do? I'm a fireman. Not I grab a hose and I put out fires. That's the behavior. When the behavior is done enough, the identity gets cemented. You literally used a fire hose to put out fires enough times that I've become a fireman. Now, I speak about this a lot with my friends about owning identities. So for example, I recently started learning the guitar. Someone's like, do you play guitar? I'm a little bit here and there. Whereas if you own the identity, yeah, I'm a guitarist. Now, what a guitarist does versus what someone that plays a little bit of guitar does is completely different. When you own the identity, the behaviors become more automatic and easy to do. So it works for the positive and the negative. If you have the identity, I'm an anxious person, then your brain goes, you're an anxious person, therefore all these behaviors is what you should do. If you're anxious, you should probably not go out and socialize tonight. If you're anxious, you probably don't like socializing. If you're anxious, you're probably going to be very quiet when you go out and talk to other people. If you're anxious, you'll probably only want to talk to the one person the whole night, or then leave early. Because they're the behaviors that someone who is, I have anxiety, I'm an anxious person. Not, oh, I'm feeling a little bit anxious. Oh, I'm feeling a little bit shy. So what we're going to do is we're going to change your identity and start feeding another identity. So when we're feeling that sense of anxiety, we're going to say, instead of I'm an anxious person, we're going to say, you know what? I'm going to reframe that anxiety as excitement, and I'm going to start calling myself a confident person. Sounds very simple, basic, boring. Try it. So it's literally a choice of how you perceive yourself. Now, there's a whole field in personal development around identity work and belief systems. Now, a lot of people who are skeptical and nervous, to make themselves feel safer, skeptical, nervous people try to concentrate on being in control. And so they're always worried about, but is it right or wrong? Belief systems and identity work is all about what helps you, what's helpful. It doesn't matter whether it's right. It doesn't matter whether you act. I'm not going to get like the music police come to me and be like, you're not officially a guitarist because you need to know 17 chords and having played for 5 years. Doesn't matter. I'm a guitarist if I choose to be. Does it help me to call myself that? Well, if I was a guitarist, I'm then going to practice more because that's a behavior that a guitarist would do. If I'm a confident person, I would go out and do what I want to do. That's what a confident person would do. So owning the identity makes the behavior easier. And so the 2 main things I want you to get from this, actually 3, get the fuck off this identity of being, I'm an anxious person. You're not. You could be. Whether you think you are or you think you aren't, you're right. So it just doesn't serve to believe that. If you believe that I'm a confident person, I don't have anxiety. I just experience the feeling of anxiety sometimes, and I choose to call it excitement. It's just going to give you a better result. And I'm sure that if you're watching this video, you want a better result. You deserve a better result, okay? It's very important. So that's the first thing. So we're gonna change so the first thing is we're ditching the idea of calling ourselves anxious. You're no longer anxious, right? So when I said at the start of this video, I used to have intense anxiety, what I mean is I used to call myself an anxious person. I still feel anxiety sometimes, but every time I do my best to reframe it and rephrase it to I'm excited, okay? So I want you to ditch I'm an anxious person, that's one. The second part of this is I want you to, every time you feel anxious, you say, no, I'm actually excited. And the third one is I want you to start owning the identity of being a confident person. All right, this is a big one, this point. So I get excited about this stuff. You can tell I love what I do. This is massive. And every time you feed these three different, every time you choose confident over anxious, excited over anxious, you're reprogramming your mind and it becomes easier and easier to do. So that's what this is all about. 9, mirror work. This is so beautiful. This is, because remember when I said, and this point, tribal programming, our nervous system is meant to keep us alive. We want to be liked by other people. Most people approach their life attempting validation outside of themselves. They want other people to validate them. And so when they go socializing, the reason it's so nerve-wracking is because if someone else says something or doesn't communicate or you're by yourself, your brain goes, yeah, as a result, you're not a worthwhile person. You're not valuable. You're a nobody. You're nothing. Fuck you. Nah, it is intense though. So what if you didn't actually care about that because you thought you were amazing regardless? So someone says something, you're like, doesn't matter. I'm completely full. There's no liability here. There's no risk of me changing my self-worth. I'm full now. A very, very powerful place to be when you love yourself unconditionally. You think you're 100% full, 100% worthy. Then you go out and socialize. There's no risk. There's nothing that could happen that would throw you because you're already amazing. Like you go to socialize, something happens. There's no liability. It's not like there's a big gaping hole, like a gap in your sense of self. And if someone else like says something, it's like, oh no, I knew I shouldn't have come out tonight. It's like, I'm full. I want to socialize. I'm going to go there. Whatever happens, I'm still full. I'm still a full, fulfilled person. I'm still whole. I'm still perfect. I'm still complete on my own terms. Mirror work helps that. So I'm going to give you guys an activity. You're building a sense of self-worth within yourself. You're going to look in the mirror. You're going to look yourself in the eye and you're going to do 3 exercises, 3 questions. One is, what am I proud of myself for today? And every time you do any socializing stuff, when you get back and before you go out, you're going to repeat this. You could get it done in 1 minute, 2 minutes. What are 7 things that I'm proud of myself for? Really look at yourself as you're saying it. I'm proud of you. You can even speak to yourself. I'm proud of you for, if I was doing it for myself, I'm proud of me for showing up and doing this video. I'm proud of me for having the courage to hire a videographer. I'm proud of me for going after my dreams. I'm proud of me for being a caring person. And let's go through these things. So 7 things that you're proud of yourself for. Proud. The second one is, what are 7 things you forgive yourself for? You might have not gone out socializing, even though you want to practice. The anxiety got the better of you. Like you were feeling anxious and you didn't reframe it to excitement and you chose to stay at home. I forgive you for that. I forgive you for staying socially paralyzed and not having a big friends group and not giving myself permission to make friends for X amount of time. Forgiveness times 7. And then the third one is, what are 7 things that I commit myself to? I'm going to commit that I'm going to go out and I'm going to do the best I can. I commit to myself that I'm going to speak slow and loud when I go out tonight. I commit to myself that I'm going to speak to 3 different people in the first 10 minutes of the night. What are 7 things you commit yourself to? And it could be out, you might have gotten home. I commit to myself that I'm going to go out again at least once this week. What are the 7 things you can commit yourself to? And you build a lot of fullness in yourself, a lot of belief that you are whole, you're perfect, and you're complete. I love that. I'm whole, perfect, and complete. It's a beautiful affirmation if you want to write that down. Mirror work, get that in. And I've saved the hardest for last. This is the hardest, but it is the most potent and worthwhile confidence in social setting tool that you can do. Boundaries. A boundary is when you allow someone to understand what is okay in the way that they treat you. It is the hardest thing ever to do, but it is something that creates an enormous sense of self-worth more than anything else. And it actually allows people to like you more, respect you more, and for you to have more rapport with others. But what it does require, and the reason it's the hardest, is because it requires difficult conversations. Now, if socializing in general is something that's blocking you because you've got shyness and social anxiety, a difficult conversation is going to really stretch you. Guys, you're really going to have to dig deep to start to work on this one. So I'm going to give you some examples. A family member says something like, I don't think you should do that. And you go, okay, they told me what they think I should do. That's not okay with me. I don't want advice unless I ask for it or if they ask my permission to give advice. So then you go back to them and you're like really nervous, but you say, hey, I just want to give you some feedback on something that's a boundary for me. I don't want you to be giving me advice. I want to be the one that's making my own decisions. I would love, there's going to be lots of times where I'm going to ask you for advice and I'd love to have your opinion, but if there's something that I'm already solid in, I don't really want your advice unless you have something you want to say. Just ask first, please. That's setting a boundary. Now that's a difficult conversation, but you've just told that your mum or your dad or your uncle or your friend, this is how I want to be treated. And when you do that, they're going to respect you more. They're going to treat you the way that you want to be treated. Because the biggest block, or the reason I put this on the list, is because so often we struggle to socialize because we're constantly being so nice to everyone so that they like us, but then we're enabling people to treat us in a way that makes us feel uncomfortable around them. So your ability to not be shy and anxious is going to be so much grown if you're not hanging around people that are constantly making you feel weird inside because they're treating you in ways that you don't want to be treated. Every time you're around your family, this is why I said, understand social anchors. You can change the dynamic of the relationships by reteaching people how you want to be treated. And it's not always going to go down as smooth. It's not just like, sweet, you set a boundary, they respect it every time. Sometimes you're going to have to reinforce it. Sometimes setting the boundary is going to trigger someone else because they feel all threatened by the fact that you've given them that feedback. But it is your right to be treated the way that you would like to be treated and to do it with an open heart, to be kind. You do this, then when you walk around, whatever you're doing, you're there, you've got your own bubble of safety. Wherever you go, you're being treated well. And if you're not, you pull someone up or you don't if they don't respect your boundaries, you stop spending time with them. Then everywhere you go, you're creating places of safety where people like you, they treat you well. And that constantly reinforces good feelings around other people, which is so important for you feeling confident around other people and getting rid of this shyness and anxiety. So setting boundaries is a massive one. Do your best on this. Maybe you need to practice here first before you do this, but every single time you set a boundary to someone or mention a boundary, you got to celebrate it and just give yourself a massive pat on the back. Just be like, that is awesome. Because it really does take a lot of courage and not many people do it. And there's a quote that I want you guys to remember. People that don't set boundaries are triggered by people that do. So people will be like, oh, I always do so much for this person. I always speak so kindly to this person. They always speak so crap to me. And it's like, you've enabled it. You created it. That person, and you're like, but I'm always so nice to them. And they told me off when I said something mean to them, but they're always saying mean stuff to me. Yeah, they set a boundary. You're triggered because they could set the boundary and you didn't have the courage to do it. Because you're triggered by them because inside you wish you had the courage to set the boundary. Do it, and you're going to be so much freer when you socialize in the world. So, guys, what I want you to do is I want you to jump in the comments and I want you to say, what is one of these things that stood out the most that you're going to implement? What is the one of these things that you're going to implement out of all of these to improve your anxiety, to improve your shyness and become a confident person that's excited, not anxious? And if you found this valuable, drop us a like. If you got to this point in the video, I mean, you are on the road to being a really confident person. I'm super impressed. So drop us a comment, which one stood out for you the most? Give us a like on the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, press that subscribe button so you can give yourself the opportunity to continue to grow and develop. We can work together to allow you to live your best life. And I'll see you in the next video.